Welcome to another edition of Lakeville City Council Wrap-Up. During this program, we will highlight the agenda items presented to the Lakeville City Council at their May 20th, 2013 meeting. First highlighted item on the agenda is item number 5B, Fire Department First Quarter Report. And to give the information regarding this agenda item is Fire Chief Mike Meyer.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. This is going to be a short first quarter because I have a big crowd behind me and we have a big group of rookies that are getting sworn in tonight. So, mission statement for the Lakeville Fire Department is dedicated to serving the community through the protection of lives, property by providing public safety education and a professional emergency response. In the first quarter, we completed 128 commercial inspections, 4 daycare inspections, and issued 6 burn permits. Fire prevention visits, we had 9 total station tours and school visits through the first quarter. And on March 23rd, we hosted our annual banquet. Some of the pictures may look familiar. Jesse Niergaard was nominated for Rookie of the Year, and Paul Miskimen was Firefighter of the Year. Our attendance was very good, obviously, by the numbers. We had 20 retirees and their spouses, and 69 active members, plus their spouses, and also the City Council. Our incidence numbers for the first quarter, fairly stable as far as 201 calls for 13 in the first quarter compared to the previous 2 years. And how those calls are broken out. The top graph shows fire alarms, good intent call, vehicle accidents, and actually carbon monoxide. We saw an increase during the first quarter for the winter months. And then the bottom graph shows the breakout of the stations. I'd like to note that Station 4 is slightly down, 10% down from Station 1. Usually those are pretty comparable as far as numbers go, but we did some changing because of the call load that Station 4 was experiencing with day calls. And I told you it was going to be brief so that we could get to the swearing in and then retirement also.
Next highlighted item on the agenda is item number 5D, Police Department Monthly Report. And to give the background information regarding this agenda item is Captain Tim Knutson.
I know we all start out with our mission statement. So in partnership with the community that we serve, we are dedicated to reducing crime, problem solving, and ensuring the quality of life in Lakeville. In the reducing crime category, if you look down the categories here, most of the categories remain pretty much even. This is a 2-month report from what I understand. We have both March and April here. The next page will actually be April's. But as I look down the numbers, everything stays pretty static except for the fraud cases. If you'll notice, the fraud cases from 2013 went up significantly from 2012. And what that is, I think it really shows the power of the media. This is a result of, I think the chief was up in front of the council in February telling you the story of the real estate scam where a woman had put an ad on Craigslist and had people come and give her a deposit and then never give them their deposit back and not follow through with the contract. Through that story, along with a story on Channel 9 and our local newspaper, we had several more victims come forward that were victims of this same fraud. So that's one of the big reasons why our fraud cases jumped up a lot. I think probably a lot of those people would have just felt that they were out their money and never come forward had they not saw that in the media. And also one of the other things that's coming to fruition lately is a lot of financial fraud over the internet. People somehow getting people's identities and using them for financial gain. And we're finding out that most of the suspects are out of Texas and Florida and the UK and China specifically. So investigating those crimes are difficult. We basically refer our reports to those agencies in those states because that's where the crime is occurring and they'd be the ones to follow them up and go with prosecution if that is the case. For April, reducing crime, again, there's not too many numbers that are different except for if you look at the burglary category. We more than doubled from 2013 to from 2012 to 2013. Chief Von Hoff has not highlighted a couple of cases yet because We have solved a couple of burglary rings, but the suspects have not been charged. So I assume he will be bringing that forward to you as time goes along. But I wanted you to know that a lot of those cases that are representative in that larger number up there have actually been solved for us. And I'll talk about a burglary case a little later in our case highlights. And, you know, the other thing that I looked at was the year-to-date domestic assaults are up for whatever reason. And as you all know, we don't really get to control that number. The biggest thing we can do is try our best to make sure that people aren't repeat victims of that one. The next, traffic crashes are slightly up both in March and April, which I guess to me makes a little bit of sense considering last year in March and April it was considerably and diametrically different than it was this March and April. So there's a lot of snow and ice on the ground during those months. And numbers are pretty consistent from March to April. And then we go into our quality of life category. Covers our day-to-day calls and CAD incidents. Really stays pretty close to the same from month to month and really from year to year, with an ever so slight decrease overall, which basically is par for the course when it comes to both the state and national trends for crime trends. April is pretty much the same. There are no glaring differences there. In the pie graph here, a distribution of property crimes. I talked already about the increase in fraud and burglary cases, which made up in both March and April, respectively, 43% and 36% of our property crimes in March and April. But the one that always seems to be right around the top is the theft under 500 category. And these are the thefts from vehicles parked outside at night, theft from yards, generally crimes of opportunity, things that people leave in their vehicles to be stolen, or their garage doors left open, or something similar to that kind of thing. So they are basically, there is the ability for everyone to kind of prevent these crimes, but we really need the help from the citizens to be able to do that. And I'm sure, like every spring in the messages and on our police cable show, we'll be doing a public service announcement reference, keeping your garage locked and shut and your cars locked. April is pretty much the same. Again, thefts under 500 are our biggest category in April, which as it warms up, people are more kids, I shouldn't say kids, more people who like to be out in the middle of the night causing problems are out when it's warmer out. And as the summer gets upon us, that number will probably rise as well. But we'll be out in force trying to protect against that. Next slide is the distribution of property crimes comparison chart. And really, March, this is the March one, saw a slight increase in 3 categories while 4 others went down. And those categories were thefts under 500, shoplifting, and the fraud. And the thefts under 500 and frauds, again, I had already talked about, and the shoplifting, again, is one of those crimes we don't have a lot of control over. We do more of a response to that kind of a thing. April, the same comparison as March, and that showed an increase in just 1 category, which was burglary. And I kind of discussed the burglaries earlier. You will hopefully be getting a report on those very soon. The rest of the categories stayed basically the same from last year. Our street crimes unit, this is a year and a half. They've been now with us for a year and a half. They're a year and a half old, and these numbers represent some of what they have accomplished in that time period. As I was trying to think about what to talk about with street crimes unit tonight, I found it hard to talk about specific cases because so much of what they do is ongoing, and one thing snowballs into another. And if I were to talk about something here tonight, it may affect the next case that they go to work on. So I don't want to jeopardize anything for them. But in general, street crimes does what all of our cops love to do. They go out, develop leads, follow those leads to the criminals, and develop cases, often in the process gaining more information, which starts the ball rolling again. One of their two-year goals up there, you will look at total search warrants, GPS orders, and subpoenas. One of their 2-year goals was to get 30 search warrants, and they're 18 months in, so they're well on their way. They'll probably smash that mark, and they're very proud of that mark. They worked very hard to develop informants and come up with those numbers. Traffic Safety Unit, their March activity, 31 citations and 4 arrests, and that was, Adam Steyer is our primary traffic unit, our traffic car, and he was on vacation for 2 weeks out of that month, so those numbers are a little bit lower. But April, we have 55 citations and 7 arrests. And then we work several traffic safety programs around the county with several of our other officers who are specially trained to do that kind of stuff. And one incident of note for a traffic car during the month of March, Officer Steyer was out on a traffic stop, and as he was it was middle of the night, out on a traffic stop, and it was one of our major roadways. He was standing by the edge of the car talking to the driver, and for whatever reason looked back and saw a vehicle coming towards him at a high rate of speed, and knew that vehicle was going to run right into the back of his squad car and maybe take him out. So he decided to hit the ditch and basically ran between the cars into the ditch. At the last minute, the driver pulled out and went around the vehicles. He was able to clear his traffic stop and catch up to the driver, who was drunk and was arrested for DUI. So luckily he's safe, and we got a drunk driver off the road. Anybody remember that day?
April 23rd.
Here's what a few days before spring looked like for from Sergeant Cornman's perspective this year. This is a crash just south of our city on Dodd Boulevard, and there's a school bus involved. Luckily, no injuries, and there was really very few injuries in all the accidents we had during those few crashes that week. Given the blizzard-like conditions that did usher in the coldest first day of spring since the mid-1960s, I think we were pretty lucky. And this picture, perspective-wise, was taken standing on Dodd Boulevard facing northbound, and normally you would be able to really see those houses pretty easily in the background there, but it was a pretty blustery day. All right, this is the burglary case that I wanted to talk to you about. On April 5th, at about 4:20 in the morning, officers responded to what initially came out as a theft from vehicle call. And the officers responded to the area, neighborhood in north central Lakeville, and the first arriving officer, Tom Stewart, was able to talk to the victims immediately and realized that this was much more than a theft from vehicle. It was actually 2 burglaries, residential burglaries with people inside their houses had just taken place in the neighborhood. And so he quickly radioed that information to the other responding squads, and also had a suspect description as well as a vehicle description. Officer Fitzhenry, Sean Fitzhenry, who was then responding, passed or came upon the vehicle that was fleeing from the scene the other way. He turned on the vehicle, and a short vehicle pursuit ensued, at which point the 2 suspects in the vehicle, without stopping the vehicle and turning it off and putting it in gear, decided to slow down and just bail out of the vehicle and run each direction. That's the picture you see here. Officer Fitzhenry, thinking quickly, took his push bumpers from his squad car, and instead of letting that house barrel into a house that car barrel into a house down the street, was able to get it stopped with his squad car But because of that, was not able to really chase after the suspects very far to catch them. We did deploy our canine unit and set up a perimeter, and as we were searching that perimeter, about an hour later, we received a 911 call from a citizen that was over at the Park and Ride bus station at 179th and Cedar. He had been on the bus, waiting for the bus to leave to go back northbound to Minneapolis or that direction, and a person had gotten on the bus, and the bus driver felt he looked kind of strange because he was all covered in grass and mud and dirt and looked like he'd been running through the grass and stuff like that. So having that in mind, as well as knowing that he had seen all the police activity as he was coming southbound on Cedar to come pick up, he thought maybe he might have a suspect for us. So the bus driver had a citizen give us a call, and we then pulled over the bus and were able to apprehend one of our suspects, who was interviewed by Detective Dave Watson and who obtained a confession to the burglaries, and also identified the second person who was still at large. That second person, while we were looking for the first, had found an open garage door and a set of keys in a vehicle, and stole another vehicle from Lakeville. And I forgot to mention the white car up there that we were able to stop with the squad car was also a stolen vehicle out of one of the Twin Cities. Both parties were located and confessed, and complaints for both of them are up there on the screen and the little legal documents there. This was tremendous teamwork on the part of everyone involved, not only our police officers, but the victims who got the right information, and the citizen and the bus driver who called us and were able to lead us to the suspects. So it's just a testament to how the community and the police department can work together to bring everything together and make some good arrests. We had an appreciation dinner for all the volunteers in March, and this last couple of months we had two pretty significant Lakeville Police Reserve events. One was that appreciation dinner, and at that we presented Reserve Captain Heidi Crane with the Reserve Officer of the Year award, and that is Heidi holding the award, of course, in the middle of the picture. Heidi has been a reserve officer since 2005 and has given the police department well over 2,000 hours of her volunteer time during her years here. And she was promoted late last year to the rank of captain, which is the highest rank in the reserve unit, and she now leads that unit for us. And the other reserve function that we had was in mid-April. 8 new reserve officers graduated from the Reserve Academy. Every other year we go out and solicit and recruit new people to come in and help our reserve unit, because over time people drop off little by little, and we tend to get a few people who want to be police officers on our reserve unit, so they find jobs and have to leave us. But this year we got a good crew of 8 people. Actually, we had 10, and we hired 2 of them from before they actually got through the academy, so as our CSOs. So we had a small ceremony at the police department for the academy, and they received their reserve badges and are excited to hit the road. In 2012, our reserve force provided over 4,000 hours of volunteer service to the police department, and we could not do our jobs nearly as well without the support of these unselfish citizens. We would like to welcome them to our team. And lastly, Sarah Brockman, our newest addition to the police officer ranks, who started on March 4th and was sworn in shortly after by the council and by the mayor, is pictured here. The picture was taken that evening after the swearing-in ceremony just outside the council chambers, and Sarah is standing next to Chief Von Hoff. It's just to point her out in the picture. Sarah is doing very well and is currently in the 3rd phase of her field training program, and if all goes well, there's no reason to believe it won't. She will be scheduled to start solo patrol one month from tomorrow. And that's always a huge accomplishment in any young officer's career. And I'd like to thank you all for your support, Council, and that concludes my monthly report for this evening.
Next highlighted item on the agenda is item number 5E, Parks and Recreation Department Monthly Report. And to give the information on this agenda item is Parks and Recreation Director Brett Altergott.
First slide here is the Lakeville Arts Center. On April 6th, we had one book, one Lakeville. We had 300 people attend, and we had the New York Times best-selling author Jamie Ford discussing the book Hotel on the Corner of Bitter and Sweet. Again, this is something that is done on an annual basis. There's a book selected. I hope that all the attendees would read it, and then they come and discuss it. Again, filled up the Arts Center that day. It was a great event. On April 7th, we had Straighten Up and Fly Right, the history of Nat King Cole. If you remember, that was rescheduled from January 19th. That typically would have been an off weekend, but we were able to fit that show in. Also at the Arts Center, we had Wage Warfare, which ran over 2 weekends, so they had 6 performances, and that's Expressions Community Theater. And on April 28th, we had a Crash Coffee concert. Crash is similar to like Stomp. They'll play a lot of household items as instruments. From I wasn't there, but Tom told me it was unbelievable. During intermission, they actually moved chairs and had the crowd participate and had a performance right in the middle of the Arts Center. So they adapted, and all in attendance had a great time. On the park maintenance side, well, obviously it was a slow start to the month of April with the 22 inches of snow that we had. So the guys had time. They worked on a mixing tank for the herbicides, and then we repaired our Roundup sprayer as pictured there, along with numerous other projects, as typically we'd be out in the parks prepping for spring. That really got pushed back on us this year. But when the weather did improve, we were able to finish installing the player benches at Aronson Park on Softball Field 1. Those concrete pads were installed late in the fall last year. And then we got some TVs from the liquor department, and we installed those at the Heritage Center. There's a total of 3 installed, 1 in the conference room, 1 in the Heritage Room, and 1 in the atrium. They're nice additions. The TV you see in the corner, we don't have to go from room to room now. We're able to use the units in the room. And they can double as monitors as well if you were to hook a notebook computer to them. The annual tree and shrub sale. We did manage with a late push to sell 278 trees and shrubs. 13 donated to the park, and that last one came actually someone donated to us that day while we were handing the trees out. So luckily, again, the weather cooperated. We were able to get our trees in the ground the following Monday. And there were a couple of key trees that were donated as memorials for people. We were able to get those into the park that week as well. On the recreation side, April 13th, we had the Family Fun Fest at Ames Ice Arena. 1,200 was the registered attendance. I was there. To me, it was packed. There was activity everywhere. Not only did I see all families enjoying, especially my kids, they really enjoyed it. But we just had, again, a variety of activities, followed up at the end with the Lorax, was a movie on the turf. Again, well attended, a lot to do, I believe, with the weather as well. It was a pretty cold day, so it was a great activity, good timing this year. And believe it or not, we did start adult softball leagues. We got a couple of games in, a couple of nights in April. We were pushed back on quite a few nights, and we're in the middle of playing catch up right now. But we were happy to at least say we did get a start. On the senior side of things, our membership total ended up at 1,006 members at the end of March. So we're steadily increasing that number. May is the new, so when we're looking at it, end of April probably did not change a ton with a May 1st registration, but we were able to crack 1,000 members from May of 2012 through March 31st of 2013. Also, every year the AARP does taxes, and we were able to assist over 200 people this year. And some of you were in attendance on April 23rd. We had the volunteer recognition brunch, and there was 108 in attendance. I thought that was very well attended. Again, all the people that make it possible, not just for the Heritage Center, but they volunteer many, many other areas in the community as well. So it was a pleasure to be there. Also, on the 24th, they had the All Saints Daisy Troop visited and played bingo with some of the seniors. I didn't get a chance to see that, but again, looking at the photo, I think it's a great intergenerational activity. I think the seniors enjoy it probably more than the kids do. And then we had the waffle breakfast and bake sale and garage sale, and we served waffles to 789 people and approximately $6,500 in profit. Now that profit, that $6,500 from waffle breakfast that's held 3 times a year, that goes towards the operation costs. It does not get applied to the thermometer. That goes towards our O&M for the year. Project updates. King Park, we have a couple of projects going on. We have batting cages being put in by the Baseball Association. In order to keep the tournaments that we were having up at King Park, they needed to put in 4 additional batting cages or we're in jeopardy of losing that tournament. The organizers of the tournament contributed towards those batting cages, and you'll see those if weather works out this week. We'll be getting those in. You're going to see 2 in the front and 2 you won't even see unless you're in the back of the park. But those were necessary to keep the 2 tournaments that do come into that facility coming to Lakeville. And then what the pictures you see here is the Miracle Field Phase 2. What that's going to be is the beginning of the entrance. You can see the back end of the Bobcat. That's going to be a nice transition area, a nice large concrete pad, and then down each side is going to be asphalt pathway for the kids to get down to the field. And those wrap around to each side of the dugout. Brian Rosine, who really got the Miracle Field going here in Lakeville, secured donations for that. And worked with a contractor to get all those donations. So again, this is of Phase 2. It's Phase 1. There's a couple steps, but this is the most important. We now have a way for the kids to get down to the field, and it meets all ADA requirements for that. All right, in upcoming things, we are currently taking registrations, so if people are looking for summer programs, things to do, shelter rentals, you name it, give us a call. Go online. Between the Recreation Division, the Senior Division, and the Arts Center. We constantly have things going on that people can register for year-round. And of course, summer does begin, summer programming, June 10th. So in the next couple weeks, if you're in City Hall, you'll see our staff training their summer staff. So that's an important, that all starts in later this week and right up until the week before programs begin. And with that, is there any questions?
Well, those were the highlighted items presented to the Lakeville City Council at their May 20th, 2013 meeting. If you have any questions or comments regarding these agenda items, please feel free to call City Hall. The number is 952-985-4400. Thanks for watching this edition of Lakeville City Council Wrap-Up. Hi, I'm R the Raccoon.
And I'm Georgette the Frog, here to talk to you about using your child safety car seats correctly.
Yeah. Make sure the car seat is secured tightly.
No wiggle room.
Check the harness strap for tightness.
Good and tight. Oh my.
Ouch.
Oh.
The harness clip should be at armpit level.
Do frogs have armpits? Pew.
And it's safer for children under 13 to ride in the back seat.
Hi.
Hey, you better get buckled up.
Oh. Hey, if a frog and a raccoon can buckle up,
So can you.
Yeah, you.
No, you.
No, you.